Imagine discovering the secret link that connects the shadows of the Colosseum to the heart of the Vatican. A thread of symbols, alliances, and even political forgeries that allowed the power of gladiators and emperors to be reborn, adapted, beneath the dome of a microstate of just 44 hectares. Have you ever wondered why the Holy See, despite its tiny territorial footprint, still wields diplomatic, moral, and economic influence worthy of a millennia-old empire? In this video, we will unravel the incredible journey from the donation of Constantine to the Papal States, from the Lateran Treaty to the Second Vatican Council, and show how each chapter of that legacy strengthened the papal temporal power. But before we dive into this amazing story, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any historical curiosities about ancient Rome and the modern Vatican. Get ready to uncover how the legendary edict of the donation of Constantine and the emblematic coronation of Charlemagne laid the foundation for papal temporal power, a fascinating chapter of political maneuvering and sacred alliances. The donation of Constantine and the coronation of Charlemagne. In the turbulent 8th century, as the Western Roman Empire was crumbling under barbarian invasions, a document emerged promising to restore its prestige. The donation of Constantine. Likely drafted in the 8th century by Roman clerics, this apocryphal edict attributed to the 4th century Emperor Constantine the grant of vast provinces to the Bishop of Rome. For over 7 centuries, pontiffs such as Leo III built their political actions on this letter, keeping alive the claim to secular power even without direct military control. On December 25, 800, in St. Peter's Basilica, Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne in the presence of Frankish and Roman dignitaries. The monarch, who already held sway over most of Western Europe, received the crown as Emperor of the West, reviving Rome's imperial mantle. The ceremony, steeped in Christian symbolism and Roman heritage, with processions, incense, Latin, orations and choir chants, marked the fusion of spiritual and temporal authority, legitimizing Charlemagne as Caesar's successor. This alliance defined the concept of papal temporal power. The pontiff provided sacred anointing and moral backing, while the emperor guaranteed military security and political stability to the church. The union of altar and throne influenced the formation of the Holy Roman Empire in 962 and shaped medieval diplomacy. For centuries, the Bishop of Rome moved between pulpit and throne, cementing ancient Rome's legacy in European geopolitics, and symbols endured. Eternal. Their echo still resonates in halls of power today, immortalized in history when territory and blessing united. The foundation was laid to sustain papal dominion for generations. The foundation of the Papal States. In 754, threatened by the Lombard king Aistulf, Pope Stephen II trekked on foot across the Alps in the dead of winter to seek help from Pepin the Short. Between 754 and 755, Frankish troops defeated Aistulf, and in 756, Pepin formalized the donation of Pepin, granting the papacy lands including Imola, Bologna, and Ferrara. Thus the Patrimonium Petri was born, and the Papal States emerged, conferring secular authority on the Bishop of Rome over a defined territory. This milestone redefined sacro-secular relations in Western Christendom. It echoed through European courts, forever, immortal. The papal administration incorporated structures inherited from the ancient Roman Empire. It maintained the official use of Latin in records and decrees, instituted censuses to collect tributes, and created a centralized fiscus. Inspired by the imperial cursus publicus, it established postal stations and appointed dukes and rectors to govern duchies and provinces. Additionally, roads and bridges, like the Ponte San Lorenzo in Sutri, were rebuilt to ensure that canon, law, and royal edicts were communicated efficiently. Over more than a millennium, Pontiffs such as Leo IV erected the Leonine Walls to protect the Vatican, and Renaissance popes sponsored sacred art, funding works like Michelangelo's Dome. In the 19th century, Pius IX modernized the territory by promoting infrastructure, projects, and integrating Civitavecchia with new rail links. Until 1870, the balance of spiritual and temporal power sustained the uniqueness of the Papal States, indirect heirs to the structures of Caesar and Augustus. With that foundation laid, the stage was set for upheavals that would change the papacy's fate. The Roman question and the prisoner in the Vatican. On September 20th, 1870, troops from the newly formed Kingdom of Italy invaded Rome, breaching the Aurelian walls with little resistance and officially ending the Papal States. Pius IX, then 78, refused to order military defense and instead took refuge within the Vatican, declaring himself the prisoner of the Vatican in protest against secular power's advance and the loss of temporal authority. The following year, the Italian Chamber passed the Law of Guarantees 1871, offering the Pope privileges such as inviolability of Vatican territory, diplomatic representation, and an annual subsidy. Pius IX rejected any compromise that subordinated him to the new government, hardening his stance with an apostolic letter and enacting the non-expedite, which discouraged Catholics from voting in Italian elections and reinforced the Holy See's institutional isolation from the Italian state. For nearly 6 decades, the papacy operated without formal relations with Rome, relying on the solidarity of European courts and religious orders abroad. The Vatican became the spiritual epicenter of a resilient Catholicism, attracting pilgrims and issuing encyclicals denouncing secularism. Catholic ambassadors in Vienna and Paris sent petitions to the Italian king, while European intellectuals exalted papal independence, demonstrating the strength of a spiritual authority unbound by territorial limits. Between stone walls and diplomatic backrooms, a treaty awaited to redefine the Holy See's future. The Lateran Treaties, February 11, 1929. On February 11, 1929, Pope Pius V and Prime Minister Benito Mussolini signed the Lateran Treaties in the treaty room of the Quirinal Palace in Rome. Months of intense negotiations between the Holy See, represented by Cardinal Pietro Gasparri, and the fascist government, led by Dino Grandi, resolved the Roman question that had dragged on since 1870. Italy recognized the Vatican as a sovereign state, ceding 44 hectares within Rome and providing financial compensation for ecclesiastical properties previously confiscated. The agreement established legal borders from the Apostolic Palace precincts to the outer walls, guaranteed diplomatic immunity to the Pope, cardinals, and Holy See personnel, and granted extraterritorial status to buildings like the Palazzo della Cancelleria and the Vatican Observatory. In return, Catholicism was declared the official religion of Italy until the Second Vatican Council, and an annual subsidy was designated for the Church, inaugurating a new era of church-state cooperation. Following the treaties, the Vatican organized the Secretariat of State as a foreign ministry, created the Prefecture for Economic Affairs to manage finances, and formed the Cardinal Commission for Works of Charity to oversee social assistance. The Holy See began exchanging ambassadors with dozens of countries, reclaiming its leadership in international diplomacy. Thus, the Pope ceased to be a political hostage and regained the temporal voice that echoed the Roman Empire, projecting the Church across 20th century global forums, and so the legacy lived on. Have you ever wondered how this event shaped an empire's destiny? Leave a like now and help us keep bringing you stories like this. Thus, the Church readied itself to lead dialogues that would cross the Iron Curtain. Second Vatican Council, 1962-1965, convened by John XXIII in October 1962 and concluded under Paul VI in December 1965. The Second Vatican Council gathered about 12,500 bishops from over 110 countries in 4 plenary sessions. Structured around 4 principal constitutions, Sacrosanctum Concilium, Liturgy, Lumen Gentium, Church Nature, De Verbum, Divine Revelation, and Gaudium et Spes, Church in the Modern World, the Council revolutionized liturgical practice by authorizing Mass in vernacular languages and promoting active participation by the laity. Dignitatis Humanae enshrined religious freedom as a fundamental human right, while Nostra Aetate opened a new era of interfaith dialogue, recognizing shared values with Jews, Muslims, and other traditions. Complementary decrees like Apostolicam Actuositatem, lay apostolate, and Unitatis Redintegratio, ecumenism, strengthened bonds with Orthodox and Protestant churches, drawing on the Roman ideal of the common good as championed by thinkers such as Cicero. In subsequent years, Concilia encyclicals, Pacem in Terris, 1963, and Populorum Progressio, 1967, gave the Vatican a prominent voice on peace, development, and civil rights. The establishment of the Pontifical Commission for Justice and Peace, and in 1994, the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences expanded its influence in forums like the UN and UNESCO. Popes Paul VI, John Paul II, and Benedict XVI deepened this legacy. Francis promotes synodality and ongoing dialogue with other denominations, as articulated in Evangelii Gaudium and Querida Amazonia. Ecumenism has also advanced through regular meetings of religious leaders. As the Council's voice echoed, nations trembled before a diplomacy without borders. Cold War diplomacy, 1945-1991. During the Cold War, Pius IX worked behind the scenes to protect Catholics under communist regimes in Eastern Europe. Through the Pontifical Commission for Extraordinary Affairs, the Vatican coordinated shipments of food, medicine, and forged documents, enabling priests and religious persecuted in Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia to escape. Vatican radio broadcast spiritual reflections and clandestine news, breaking barriers and sustaining hope behind the Iron Curtain. It is estimated that over 10,000 refugees benefited from these efforts. With the election of John Paul II in 1978, papal diplomacy gained global prominence. Karol Wojtyła visited Poland in 1979 and 1983, mobilizing communities and encouraging the solidarity movement. His sermons, amplified by loudspeakers in Warsaw, carried hope to those living under political surveillance. After the 1981 assassination attempt in St. Peter's Square, the Pope appealed for reconciliation and quietly pressured Soviet leaders to ease religious repression, reinforcing the yearning for freedom that culminated in 1989. The Vatican, lacking armed forces, maintained nunciatures in Budapest, Moscow, and Sofia as discreet diplomatic posts. In informal agreements, it negotiated the release of prisoners and promoted cultural exchanges, funding church restorations. It participated in the 1975 Helsinki Conference and CSCE talks, solidifying its role as a moral arbiter. Today, the Vatican still operates missions in Moscow and Kyiv, engaging in dialogues on religious freedom and humanitarian crises, perpetuating the ethical legacy of the Roman Empire. Its diplomacy helped avert regional conflicts. Even burdened by recent triumphs, the papacy would face internal trials that altered its course. Abuse crisis and internal reforms, 2000-2020. At the dawn of the 21st century, the Vatican confronted its greatest modern scandal, Allegations of sexual abuse by clergy, such as Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, and dozens of cases revealed by the Boston Globe in 2002. State investigations in Pennsylvania and Chile exposed decades of silence and cover-ups in American, European, and Latin American dioceses, with more than 200 confirmed cases on record. In response, Benedict XVI issued the 2001 Motu Proprio Sacramentorum Sanctitatis Tutela, granting the Holy See exclusive jurisdiction over serious crimes, and in 2015 eliminated canonical statutes of limitation. Francis established in 2014 the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors, and in 2019 promulgated Vos Estis Lux Mundi, creating mandatory reporting channels, investigative protocols, and penalties for negligent bishops. These measures led to trials in the Vatican Tribunal, such as that of former Cardinal Pell in 2019, and external audits of the IOR and Secretariat of State. The Holy See began publishing annual transparency reports, training dioceses in prevention, and collaborating with international child protection NGOs. The ability to acknowledge failures, implement structural reforms, and cooperate with civil authorities reflects the same adaptability that enabled the Roman Empire to survive revolts, coups, and rebirths. Eternal. In the 2020s, the Vatican launched digital reporting portals, expanding oversight and victim support. In 2021, it held the first global seminar on abuse prevention and formed mixed committees of bishops and lay experts. Meanwhile, the Vatican was broadening its reach in forums where words replace weapons. Permanent observer at the UN since 1964. In 1964, the Holy See gained permanent observer status at the United Nations, acknowledging its global moral authority. John XXIII led the initial dialogues, and Paul VI solidified that voice in the General Assembly, championing resolutions on disarmament and development. At UN conferences, the Holy See defended refugees, fought poverty, and prioritized social justice. Vatican ambassadors mediated crises, brokered ceasefires, and oversaw humanitarian missions, reinforcing the Pope's reputation as Prince of Peace. It intervened with the World Food Programme, delivering aid to vulnerable populations. Today, the Holy See remains influential at climate conferences, COP, and in monitoring the 2030 Agenda. Inspired by Rome's ideal of the common good, it endorses climate action targets, participates in gender equality debates at the CSW, and partnered with WHO on COVID-19 vaccination efforts. In 2021, it submitted UN reports on human rights, forced migrations, and humanitarian crises, linking ancient values to modern challenges. Additionally, it maintains missions to UNESCO and FAO, expanding cultural diplomacy and supporting education and food security projects. The Holy See leverages its centuries-old administrative expertise to shape multilateral policies, recalling the organizational spirit of the ancient Roman Empire. Eternal. In New York, the Holy See's Permanent Observer Mission addresses the UN, reiterating global peace values. Behind this global presence, a financial engine keeps everything in motion. Vatican Economy and the IOR. Founded in 1887 by Leo III, the Institute for the Works of Religion, IOR, centralized donations, legacies, and charity funds to support institutions and pastoral projects. Inspired by imperial treasuries and the financial discipline of Roman senators, the IOR served as the Church's banker, managing papal legacies and distributing resources to social works. In the 1980s and 1990s, the IOR was rocked by scandals such as the collapse of Banco Ambrosiano, whose chairman, Roberto Calvi, was found dead in 1982. and 2012 money laundering investigations that expose shadowy international financial crimes, undermining its credibility and forcing deep reforms. In response, Francis established in 2014 the Secretariat for the Economy and the Council for the Economy, recruiting lay economists and external auditors. The motu proprio predicate Evangelium and the IOR's own statute mandated independent audits, stringent controls, and separation of oversight from operations, reflecting Roman pragmatism in fiscal management. Today, the revitalized IOR funds social, educational, and healthcare projects in underserved regions, backing Caritas initiatives, microcredit schemes, and hunger relief programs. Since 2021, it has published transparency reports on the Vatican portal and earned international compliance certifications, positioning the Holy See as a model of ethical governance. This journey shows that, as in ancient Rome, resource control is essential to maintain the central power's influence and independence. With solid financial foundations, the Vatican continues turning challenges into influence opportunities. The Vatican in the 21st century. Under Francis, the Vatican has faced unprecedented challenges: climate crisis, mass migration, and political polarization. In 2015, the encyclical Laudato Si issued a global call for sustainability, linking the Church's social doctrine to Rome's historic imperative of balance between humanity and nature. In 2020, Fratelli Tutti reaffirmed universal fraternity, and in 2019, the Vatican participated in the UN Climate Action Summit, proposing circular economy measures and emission reduction targets. Active in nearly 200 countries, the Vatican operates nunciatures as diplomatic hubs, while its digital outreach spans social media, the Click to Pray app, and Pope Francis weekly podcasts. Live-streamed masses and angelus prayers engage youth and minorities, evoking the ancient Roman roads that linked provinces to the empire's heart. Historic visits to Myanmar, 2017, and Iraq, 2021, reinforced its mediator role in conflict zones. On the morning of April 21, 2025, Cardinal Kevin Farrell announced from his chapel at Casa Santa Marta that Francis had died at age 88 from respiratory complications, ending a 12-year pontificate defined by humility and reform. The sed vacante began immediately. The papal seals were affixed, and the College of Cardinals prepared for the conclave scheduled for May 6–11, 2025. Though territorially small, the Vatican shows that the essence of power, a union of spiritual authority and temporal influence, remains alive. This millennia-old ritual, mobilizing cardinals and faithful worldwide, demonstrates the institutional resilience inherited from the Roman Empire. Even without a pope, the Holy See continues its missions and diplomacy, proving Caesar's legacy. Pulses on in every liturgical gesture, official document, and word spoken by the pontiff. If you enjoyed this journey through time and want more fascinating stories, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video with your friends. Your support helps us keep delivering quality historical content. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video about ancient Rome and its magnificent empire.